All right, we are recording, and I think we are live. Let me just confirm. Yes, we are live.
Great, I'll get going then. My name is James Pepper. I'm the chair of the Vermont Cannabis Control Board. Today is Monday, May 9th, 2022, and I call this meeting to order. Happy Mother's Day to everyone. It was a really beautiful weekend here in Vermont. So just a quick update on licensing. So Bryn is going to walk through the specific licensing numbers in a bit, but I can say that the board is on the cusp of issuing our first batch of licenses. As I mentioned last week, we are currently hiring our licensing staff and our compliance and enforcement team, which should speed up our internal processes significantly. And we've had a overwhelmingly great response to those postings. I think it's over 200 people have applied to come work at the Cannabis Board, which means that we'll have a really kind of top-notch team, licensing compliance team that can really hit the ground running. In the meantime, though, we've turned some of our staff towards reviewing these full applications while we wait to onboard our licensing and compliance folks. It's a bit of a good news, bad news situation. The bad news is that as of last Friday, we've been kind of reviewing our applications based on our top priorities, social equity, small outdoor cultivators. None of these top priority applications is fully complete. Some are missing relatively minor things, like their good standing documentation from the tax department, diagrams of their cultivation sites, banking and insurance information. Others are just waiting on things like the CSI background check or payment of their licensing fees. The good news is that all of the folks in this kind of initial batch, we've sent emails out to them detailing the areas where their applications are incomplete and explaining how they can fix these deficiencies. And once we have complete applications, we will begin issuing licenses, and hopefully that will be pretty soon. With respect to payment of fees, just want to reiterate that everyone should always be cautious whenever kind of entering payment information online. The link to pay your licensing fees is on our website. You can either go to our homepage at ccb.vermont.gov and click on adult use forms and applications on the left-hand side of the screen, or you can go to that page directly, ccb.vermont.gov/forms, and then the link to pay your fee is about a quarter of the way down the page. It's called Cannabis Control Board Application Payment Service. So just remember, please be prudent. We really do not want anyone to get scammed. We're not going to be calling anyone and asking for their credit card numbers over the phone. If you're getting any sort of suspicious looking emails and you're concerned about paying online, please just give us a call and we can kind of direct you to the right place and make sure that everything is, on the level and legitimate. So again, any questions or concerns around payment, our email is ccb.info@vermont.gov. Our phone number is 802-828-1010. And it's option 0 for the adult use program. Fire safety. I mentioned this a few times, but the Division of Fire Safety needs to talk to every prospective licensee, whether you're an outdoor cultivator, a tier 1 indoor cultivator, or a home-based product manufacturer, and everyone else. This is not a requirement that the board can waive or we would waive. This is really about public safety. The good news here is that this is not an overly burdensome process. Fire safety can check remotely, as in no site visit required, to see if your business is actually subject to their jurisdiction. If you're not, they will issue you a letter to that effect, and we will want to see this letter, so please call them. I spoke with fire safety this morning. And they are all caught up with respect to issuing these letters to non-public building operators. And with respect to projects that are within their jurisdiction, they have people in their pipeline already. They've been in touch with everyone. They've scheduled site visits, et cetera. If you are within their jurisdiction, if you know you are, you can speed up the process by having your kind of permit application ready to go, your change of use request, and any other sort of associated documentation. You can get that to them as soon as possible. It will help speed things up. And just as a point of personal privilege, I really urge everyone to think about fire safety generally when you're putting together your business plan. This applies whether you're a public building or a single family home, residential home. Vermont has a lot of very old homes with deteriorating electrical systems. Overloading these systems can create a significant fire hazard. And please remember that, fires, it's not just about you, it's also your family, it's your neighbors, and first responders. So again, fire safety would like to talk to everyone. They've divided the state into north, south. Landon Wheeler handles the southern part of the state. Essentially, if you drew a line from the top of Windsor County across the state, everything below that. His phone number is 802-216-0501 or landon.wheeler@vermont.gov. Ben Moffitt handles the northern part of the state. It's 802-479-7581 or benjamin.moffitt, MOFFATT @vermont.gov. Those contact numbers and emails are on our website. So please, reach out to them. And before we go to approve the minutes, Kyle, did you want to give a quick update with respect to your conversations with A&R?
Yeah, happy to. So I know we've gotten some questions from some of our indoor cultivators on, whether or not they need to comply with certain portions of the DEC's Drinking Water and Groundwater Protection Division rules. It's an ongoing conversation we're having with A&R. They're looking to develop some FAQs. So these indoor cultivators, largely the ones that are producing on-site water or doing on-site wastewater discharge, meaning they're not hooked up to a municipal system. Just want to make sure that they've got the applicable permits that they need, should there be a change of use, as A&R calls it, at a prospective cultivation site. And so right now, A&R wants folks to contact their regional offices and their regional engineers, so we can get that information up on our website. There's a lot more of those, and there are 2 at fire safety. So I don't want to list all of their contact information here, but we'll get those up on our website and be on the lookout for some more information coming from A&R through us to the prospective license holders over the course of this week, not next.
Great. All right. Not easy starting a cannabis business. So other than that, just you guys had a chance to review the minutes from our meeting last Monday?
Yep.
All right. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Seconded.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Great. All right. Next on the agenda is to review social equity applicant status. Bryn, I'll turn things over to you.
Sure. So we have this week on the register a number of pre-qualification applicants for approval. We do not have any social equity status approvals this week for the board to review. But I do know that there may be a concern that the board would like to discuss about one of the business names for one of the applicants that we're putting forward today for a recommendation for pre-qualification. So I thought we could start with that discussion before we review the register.
So one of the business names is, and it's okay for me to say the full business name, right? We don't have to talk about it.
It is, yep.
Yeah. Is Candy, spelled CANNDY. And so I think the discussion should be around whether or not that's in line with our rules and the statute as it relates to, I think what the statute says is that, at least for the advertising, it can't have the effect of appealing to someone under the age of 21. So whereas the business name could potentially be Candy, none of the advertising or branding could have the business name on it,
Included in it.
right? That's sort of my layman's perspective.
Okay.
And what kind of, I assume this is a cultivator?
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's a pre-qualification for a cultivator.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I could see it. Yeah, I was thinking that maybe, because we're pre-qualifying essentially the principals and the owners, but I guess the pre-qualification would also be for the business name.
Right, or now that is the time to raise the concern. I think we could still approve the owners and the principals, but say to them, when you get to full licensing, we need to reconsider the business name
Yeah.
or have more information about how they intend to use it.
Do we have anything in our rules around what business names, I mean, do we associate business names with advertising?
So 2.2.10 or 2.2.9 talks about advertising, and it includes like brand and logo development, I think are the words that we use. And any other display. So we haven't necessarily defined any other display as
Right.
whether it's a picture or the words, but that sort of is in there as part of the rules.
So essentially what we would be, the problem is, so this is a cultivator. So they're not necessarily going to be displaying this name to the public. But if they were, then it would be an advertisement and it would be appealing to youth.
Could potentially, yeah.
That make it hard for a retailer to highlight their products.
Right. So if they're going to package a product and sell it at a retailer, it would have to be white labeled, right?
Yeah. Okay.
Having no idea what the business plan is specifically, that's why
they
I'm
could
raising
seek
the
other-
question. Yeah,
You could seek other licenses too.
that's a good point. I hadn't thought about that.
Okay. So then it seems to me like I mean, are we all in agreement that Candy appeals to youth, the name?
Yeah, so we
CIN
may
and
also
DUI.
want to get specific advice from our general counsel, which we should do in executive session.
Okay.
I appreciate how the name on its face is a clever play on words, but in effect, it might cause some issues in the availability to sell the product, on par with how other products are going to be sold and advertised to the extent that they can be.
Yeah.
So considering this isn't, a place of business that's really open to the general public, but we're essentially anticipating a concern that could come into play. It feels like maybe we should potentially reach out to this person and just say, are you really set on this name? If so, the board might have to either we could deny it based on the name, or ask them to change the name, or we could condition their license, right? We have the ability to do that.
We do.
So the condition of the license would be, you can't have a sign that's public facing, so it's an advertisement. You can't put your name on products that are available to the public. Because that would again trigger this advertising rule. So those are essentially options, right?
Yep, I mean, I would note that they are before you today for pre-qualification, not for a full license. So we haven't yet conditioned a pre-qualification, but it certainly could be a part of their pre-qualification letter that some sort of notice that we would require a different name if they did submit an application for a full license.
Even if it's not that, just having them understand, and maybe it's communicated through you or through staff, like this name may be okay, but it's going to be hard for you to, do business,
Right. To actually use it.
to actually
Yeah.
use it the way you want to use it. And see how tied to the specific name that this applicant actually is, if they understand all of those warnings going in. I'd like to hear from David, of course, but I can see a path forward. Maybe it's just a clever play on words and they've got 10 more of them up their sleeves that they could also go with. I don't know.
Right. There's also the false and misleading factor, right, in our rules and in statute. Not candy necessarily. I don't know if that matters if it's spelled differently. Like, I don't know what the nuance is there.
Okay. So, seems to me like we should probably pause this pre-qualification approval and maybe hear from David. Is that the kind of thought?
Yep, it is. Before we do hear from David, there is one other issue to discuss that may also require input from David, which is that one of the applicants that's on the register today for pre-qualification, as recommended by staff, would be presumptively disqualified by Rule 1.11.3. So you may also want to have the discussion with David while you're in executive session.
Okay. Okay, but can we approve the other prequels other than candy and the one that might be presumptively disqualified and then come back?
My recommendation is for you to decide whether you want to move forward with those two applicants before you look at the rest of the list. So you don't have to approve two separate batches.
Okay.
Makes sense.
And just, I know David's not here today. He probably is on the meeting, right?
He is, yes. And because he's remote, when we go into executive session, we have a separate Teams meeting to join with him.
So what would be the board's preference, to do that now or to do that at the end after we made it through the rest of the agenda?
What else is on our agenda? I think it's just public comment, right?
And to review the register, including those applications that board has recommended for your approval.
I think Bryn's recommendation to go into executive session now to discuss these two matters and then come back and only do one vote on those that we think make sense and then do public comment makes the most logical sense.
Let's do it that way then. So we need to move into executive session. Is there a motion to do so?
Yes. In order for the board to consider the appropriateness of the business name and also the staff recommendation regarding a presumptively disqualified applicant, I move that we go into executive session to consider confidential attorney and client communications made for the purpose of providing professional legal services to the body, and that executive session is required because premature general public knowledge and regarding such communications could clearly place the board at a substantial disadvantage.
Spoken like a former
My
select
glasses
boardsman.
on and everything.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so Nellie, can you help us with do you want to put up
Yep.
we got
I
to keep
have
this
all
meeting going,
queued up.
right?
Yep,
So
we'll
we should
keep the
just
meeting
go around the
going.
room.
Okay.
Is that what we're doing?
We can also
And also hang up.
mute.
Yeah, you can also mute and turn off your camera, whatever works best for the board.
And can you put up just a notice that we're going to be in executive session? How long do you think? Like
Probably 10 minutes.
for about 10 minutes?
I have an image all queued up.
Okay. Thanks, Nellie. Back. Yeah, Nelly, are we back?
Yes, I'm just double checking that we are in fact back. Oops, hang on one second. Okay, yes, we are back.
Okay, so we're out of executive session. It's now 11:54 a.m. Sorry that took a little bit longer than expected. It's about, I think, 30 minutes. So we had two issues under consideration. The first one was around pre-qualification, whose name of the business involved a word that's appealing to children potentially. What we decided is that for the purposes of pre-qualification, the business has satisfied the requirements under 1.4.1 and 1.4.2. Of course, the name will inevitably present some challenges to that business with respect to our advertising regulations. They're all kind of theoretical problems right now. And so I think the best course of action is to approve them for pre-qualification, and in our kind of pre-qualification letter, note some of these concerns and note that it might impact our decision at licensing, whether we're going to actually license that name or put further conditions on that name. And then with respect to the second issue, it was one of our pre-qualification applicants was presumptively disqualified. We had a conversation about whether that person had overcome presumptive disqualification. And unfortunately, a few questions came up that we needed answers to, further information. And so we are going to reach out to that applicant for further information. And we are not going to approve them this week. So other than that, Brent, I'll turn things back over to you.
Okay, so I will go through the pre-qualification and license register for this week. And just a reminder, the date there is today's date, but all of the data that you see, all these points of information included in the tables are up to date as of last Friday. So these numbers are continually changing every day. So these are based on the latest information as of Friday afternoon. So just first, a quick run through of where we are with pre-qualification applications. You can see that we've got a number, 423 have submitted but incomplete pre-qualification applications. We've got 24 applications that are complete and under review. Up for recommendation today are 14 pre-qualification applications. And then our total number that we have approved already is 96. And then the total number in aggregate is 557. So moving through these as quickly as we can. So next I'll move on to the staff recommendations for pre-qualification. So just like every week, the list that you see here based on their submission number and their license type are the applicants that the staff has determined to be suitable for pre-qualification and that have demonstrated compliance with the two board rules, 141 and 142, that set out the requirements for pre-qualification. So I will run through these one by one, as always. So submission 176 is a mixed-use Tier 1 cultivator. Submission 495 is a mixed-use Tier 2 cultivator. Submission number 169 is an outdoor Tier 4 cultivator. Submission number 281 is an indoor Tier 1 cultivator. Submission 121 is a mixed-use Tier 1 cultivator. Submission 102 is a mixed-use Tier 1 cultivator. Submission 120 is an outdoor Tier 1 cultivator. Submission 280 is an indoor Tier 3 cultivator. Submission 262 is an outdoor Tier 1 cultivator. Submission 4B is a Tier 2 manufacturer. Submission 4C is a retail, seeking a retail license. Submission 6 would be a wholesale licensee. Submission 26 is a tier 3 manufacturer, and submission 31 is also seeking a retail license. So that is the complete list of pre-qualification applications that the staff recommends for pre-qualification and for the board to consider today. And once you take that vote, I can go through the full license numbers, or I can do that next, up to you.
Why don't we vote on these first?
Okay.
Is there a motion to approve these? Or is there?
I just, 4B and 4C, that's the first time we've seen that. Is that the same set of principals and owners?
So that is the way we are identifying them in our system, because it is an applicant that's seeking multiple pre-qualifications for different license types.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you. I move that the board accept each of the recommendations for pre-qualification approval as presented by the staff in this meeting.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, and then if you just want to run
Sure.
through the numbers for fall.
So this is the table for full license applications. And just a reminder that the statuses listed at the top you can kind of read through the statuses left to right to give you an idea of where each of these applicants is in the process. So submitted means that the applicant has essentially hit submit on their electronic application or has given us a paper copy of their application. If they are in receive status, that means that the staff have acknowledged that we have taken their application and we are going to begin to review it. Under review means that staff have begun the process of reviewing that application. If the application is in incomplete status, it means they've been through the review and staff has issued a letter or some kind of communication to the applicant indicating where there are deficiencies in their application and how to correct those deficiencies. So applicants are going to toggle in between incomplete and under review. As they get back to us, they will be moved back to under review. But as of right now, we have 21 applicants in this incomplete status. So we've had 21 letters go out to inform applicants of deficiencies in their application. And then once they are reviewed again, they'll move through from left to right and eventually end up with under pending board review. As of today, we don't have any applicants pending board review. As the chair discussed at the outset of the meeting, we have shuffled some staff to cover these license applications. So we are trying to process these as quickly as possible. So I won't go through all of these numbers, but there they are for your review. We have 176 full license applications. Again, as of now, none of them are complete. Any questions on that before I run down to the social equity? I have two more tables for you to review, the social equity numbers. And then a table that shows the overlap between pre-qualification applicants and full license applicants.
I don't have any questions.
No.
So here we have a summary of our social equity applications. This is not broken out into the various license types yet. We will get to a place where we start to break those numbers out by license type, but trying to consolidate staff time right now towards reviewing the applications. So currently we've got 21 incomplete social equity applications, 3 submitted, 12 received, 1 under review, and a total of 38.
So you mentioned the letters that went out to the incompletes, and there was 21 of those, and there's 21 social equity. So those are.
So that is a 100% overlap there.
Okay.
Yes.
Yep. So the ones that we prioritize are in fact social equity.
Yeah.
Great.
And then lastly, a table here describing the license applications that are associated with pre-qualification applications. And to be clear, these are pre-qualification applicants. So these numbers are not limited to those applicants that have been pre-qualified. It's just anyone who has submitted a pre-qualification application to us. This is where they overlap with actual license applications. So I think there are 97 in total applicants for a license that have submitted a pre-qualification application also. To get all those numbers there, yeah.
I couldn't help but notice that we received 2 applications for integrated licenses,
That's right.
and those are people that are actually capable of receiving an integrated license.
Those 2 applicants are legitimately
Entitled to.
entitled to an integrated license based on the statute.
Okay. I know we had 9 applicants under pre-qualification. I don't think any of them were the actual
No.
existing medical dispensaries.
They were not.
Yeah.
So we removed those from the totals.
Okay. That's great.
We're getting there.
So last item on the agenda is public comment. We'll handle this the same way as always. We'll start with people that join via the link. Please raise your virtual hands. We'll call on you on the order that you raise your hand, and then we'll move to people on the phone afterwards. So maybe Nellie, you could help us out with the order.
You bet. Tree Frog Farms is up first.
Hey guys, how you guys doing on this beautiful Monday?
Good.
Fantastic.
I have a couple of comments, questions, concerns type of things. I know you mentioned that payment for licensing can be done through the online portal or your website. I'm wondering if you could speak to the fact that snail mail checks would still be approved. Say if someone submitted a check with their printout of their license number and maybe also put their pre-qualification number if they had passed pre-qualification to help understand that that's why the check was $500, not $1,000. And then the second is kind of my understanding that as pre-qualifications have gone, that I'm expecting that regular licensing would take a board approval to submit and to fully complete. I'm wondering that just because now, I mean, we are really pressed for time. And as being an outdoor grower and looking at the weather for this week, you really start to get that itch. And I'm starting to think, is there any way that even if it's not a publicly held meeting, because public comment wouldn't be needed, if there's a way that you guys can meet for a half an hour each day and maybe put that video on YouTube, or just to kind of speed up the processes so that we're not missing out on 4 or 5 days waiting for the Monday meeting for the approvals. I would hope that that would be a possibility, because that would really work well for a lot of us. The third thing was, I've had my application submitted by a lawyer. I don't know at what process during the application that you're going to be sending us information for the new background checks, but if there's any way that I could go about doing that ahead of time before I get a notice from you guys saying that my application is incomplete because of that. If you have any reference or guidelines on how that we could complete that and get that done and going as fast as we can to help you guys out, that would be great. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else? Please raise your virtual hands.
Dave.
Hey all. On the same topic of background checks, I'd spoken on Friday with your application review staff, super helpful, by the way, and really answered a lot of questions very, very well. But one question she could not answer was what your expected turnaround time from CSI is. And I'm wondering whether you have an SLA from them on that. I think that would be very helpful for everyone to understand sort of, once we've submitted all that stuff and wired them the funds, for the background check, how long should we anticipate that process taking from there? Thank you very much.
Thanks, Dave. Anyone else who joined via the link, please just raise your virtual hand. And I'll also just move to people who join via the phone. If you'd like to make a comment, you can unmute yourself by hitting *6. All right, we'll close public comment. Thanks for the questions. We are trying to kind of get back to people as they call, and We are trying to move as quickly as we can. We will accept payment, by check through the mail. That is okay. You can send it here. You should let us know that you're doing that just to facilitate things when they come to us. License approval, special meetings. We can do that, of course. We can call a special meeting. I think, we can call an emergency meeting. We can call a special meeting. It all depends on how much notice we give to the public. I would just reiterate that, we prioritize social equity applicants, and we're prioritizing, of course, the small cultivators, particularly outdoor cultivators amongst those social equity and within kind of the first in time, first review parameters. We don't have a complete application yet to approve. And, as of Friday, at least, I don't know if we've gotten responses over the weekend from the letters that we've sent out. But, they are relatively minor issues, I would say, that we're trying to, that could move those into a complete status. So I anticipate that we will be issuing licenses in relatively short order. And if it turns out that we need to kind of increase our regular meeting schedule or our special meeting or call special meetings, we will of course do that. I mean, we know we're all very much aware that these deadlines, while some of them might seem arbitrary, are actually not arbitrary. And so we're trying to move as quickly as we can. Background check question, we'll just update our guidance on whether or not you can do that sooner than when we ask. I think it's easier to the process is do it when we ask, but we can think about internally whether we can accept them prior any earlier to help speed that up. And I don't know the turnaround time from CSI. I think, they can do it in a matter of hours, but whether or not they have a backlog, I don't know.
It's very dependent on the individual that they're reviewing. But they are able to turn some around within, I think, a couple of hours.
Yeah.
So I think it's highly dependent on who the
Yeah, if
applicant is.
someone has a complex past,
Yep.
then it might take longer.
Multiple states,
Multiple
right? So
states,
multiple
yep.
states would probably factor into that.
That's right. And also, just one other thing is that we are sending people to the background check vendor very early on in the process, prior to doing a complete review of their application.
Okay. Great. All right. Well, anything else we need to do while we're in this meeting?
Nope.
No. All right. Well, then I will adjourn the meeting and we'll be back next Monday at 11. Thank you.